Yes, this is Kilombo TV. We have just had the second Kilombo conference on Africa, Africans, and social justice. And in our midst were people who have been involved in this struggle for some time. And with me today, we have Comrade Filomeno Francisco Lopez from Angola, leading economist and coordinator of the popular committees during the armed struggle against Portuguese occupation. And also it's Comrade Kwame Aful, founding member of the Pan-African Youth Movement in Ghana in the 1970s, and who has been a long-time committed activist in the class struggle in this country. Welcome both of you to this program.
Thank you.
I'm sure that our listeners have not heard you, so can you just say your welcome response louder, please? And that the whole interview be a bit louder, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm proud to be here. Thank you.
Comrade Aful, I'll start with you. What did the influence, did the legacy of Kwame Nkrumah have on the founding of the Pan-African Youth Movement in this country?
All said and done, it imbued in us, the youth at that time, that we have to continue the Pan-Africanist move that Nkrumah initiated. But around the time that we were, building up enough ideas, it was taking off. And we felt that we should continue it not only theoretically, but put it into practice by initiating an organization to continue what they left behind.
Comrade Philomeno, my brother, what influenced your interest in joining of the liberation struggle against Portuguese colonialism? When we know that Portuguese colonialism is one of the crudest interventions in Africa, you must have been very brave. What influenced this risk?
Well, it's because our freedmen as human beings and as African people, because we in Angola were oppressed by Portuguese. We people fighting by arms against Portuguese and others in the cities, organized people for fighting against racism, for fighting for more rights to Angolan people. And this kind of fighting was very important because some people learn from that experience for continuing the process for social justice. Ghana played a very good role in that time because all African people, including Angolans, are very satisfied with the independence of Ghana in 1957 and inspire the other people for getting the independence too. In terms, for example, of Pan-Africanism, you get some experience from Namibia and South Africa. I remember our activist, Godfrey Nangonia, the first member, came from the south of Africa to Angola to contact people, to for meeting everybody, and to build national project for independence of Angola.
Yes, Brother Kwame, I'll come to you again. Did the overthrow of the first right-wing civilian regime of Kofi Buzia and ceremonially being killed Edward Akufo-Addo and Nkrumah's death in 1972 play any serious role in the emergence of the Pan-African Youth Movement?
Yes, it did. Because around that time, I was saying that the youth were emerging, and Buzia's demise, that's his government's overthrow, it gave us, a shot of hope that we have other opportunities to make use of. In the first place, the Pan-African Youth Movement was initiated in November, right? And
November which year, please?
November 1974. Okay. 1974. And was it 74? Nkrumah died
In 1972.
72.
Yeah.
It should be earlier then, because
Then it was 1972, November 1972, the year of Nkrumah's death.
we had initiated, I think, mostly were workers, most of them. I was then temporarily taking a job at the Central Revenue Department, and most of the workers got together and initiated that. Then within just time, Nkrumah's demise came. But the overthrow of
So it means that the Panimo started
Yes.
before Nkrumah's death.
Yes.
So that means that November 1971, not 72 or 74, 71, the year before Nkrumah's death.
Yes. So we had to take advantage of that and give that critical support to the Achampon's regime, which overthrew Buzia. And I remember that we constituted a delegation, went to the castle, right? And sometimes I sit down and I think of it that what moved us to say what we put, we did. We said when we were at the castle facing Achampon, we said that the Pan-African Youth Movement will, the brief thing was that we will give him, we will be with him so long as he pursues the cause of the mass. And sometimes years after, I used to think that, so with the military man sitting there with his generals around him, we had that guts to write that thing. And so later, when we saw that, he was drifting off, right? We had to, like we said, so long as he pursued the correct course, we had to then withdraw.
Specifically the interest of the masses.
Exactly.
Brother Philomeno, you talked about the first Pan-Africanists in Angola. How did Pan-Africanism have an influence on the independence struggle in Angola?
Yeah, the liberation movement began in South Africa, Namibia, before Angola. And in South Africa and Namibia, they discussed the problem of Angola and sent somebody to go to Angola. One Angolan who was based in Namibia and contact others. And the one man was his name is Alberto, and even Cônego Manuel das Neves, a priest who take an important role in 4 February 1961 in terms of fight for release Angolan prisoners. Have contact with Pan-Africanists and with this kind of ideas in, for example, large forums like in National African League. You know the names of Angolan's institution were African, not Angolan, but African League, for example. Inside this league, the debate increased with Agostinho Neto and others leaders. And these ideas were very, very important for set up the thought about national liberation. The impact of Pan-Africanism was very important for directions in terms of national liberations in Angola.
Yes, Brother Kwame. What was the state of the leadership and membership of the Convention People's Party, which Nkrumah left behind, which was ruling the country, at the time that Panimo was emerging?
At that time, we will see that, after the 66 coup, the party was proscribed. It was banned. And the return to so-called constitutional rule in 1969, in which Busia and the Popular Front Party came into being.
Progress Party.
Progress, then Popular Front later. Progress Party came into power. The CPP was out complete. So part of it, the group entered politics through under the cover of NAD, National Alliance of Liberals, which was headed by Kwesi Agbeli-Gbedema. But most people will not. So we say that they were in limbo. The party, the CPP, who were the young when Nkrumah was alive, but you will see that the CPP leadership, because of the non-protracted nature of the struggle for independence, that's the national liberation struggle, was so short, and the colonial master, the British, manipulated and made sure that they will not resist too much for quality to emerge within the national liberation movement, right, headed by the CPP. So most of them, the leadership which emerged, apart from the party being so lucky about Nkrumah, who had a foresight that it is not only for white man go away, and for other people, the same black people, Ghanaian, to come and exploit their own people. For example, let's take the example of Kroboy Duse. To him, he used to put it in a very funny way, that socialism or any left trend meant it chop some and I chop some. But whether what you are taking is as big as his was that. So even you know that 66, some of the people, they were so weak-hearted that they even denounced Nkrumah. For example, somebody like from Winnipeg, this one, he was the UN representative.
Kwesi Nsaki.
Kwesi Nsaki
Alex
was
Kwesi
supposed
Nsaki.
to be groomed to, you know, as the new
Successor.
Napa coming. Only to be tricked. He was supposed to go to
Addis Ababa.
Ababa to confront the
NLC.
NLC delegation. Turned around, came down to Ghana, and at the Accra airport, he declared that he is breathing the air of freedom. You know, very disheartening. But, well, there were others under the invisible, you know, with Kofi Ameko and others who, you know, went out. They never did. Some spent a lot of time in prison and to sustain. Well, because some of us were a lot informed. Along the line, we felt that we must take up the mantle.
Yes, yes. I'll come back to you on Kofi Ameko and people like that, because these are not the names which are mentioned anywhere in the press, anywhere among people who claim they are part of Nkrumah is, especially people who are even operating international. These names do not factor at all. So we will come back more to this. Brother Philomeno, despite the fact that you are today informing us that Pan-Africanism influenced the Angolan struggle very much, something that is not normally talked about, because the whole impression is that the Angolan movement was just a pro-Soviet-led movement. How come that there is this impression?
How come?
That there is the impression that it's more a pro-Soviet-led movement than a movement which was influenced Pan-African, from a Pan-Africanist inclination by the liberation struggles in Namibia and South Africa?
Well, because the history have its own course, we in Angola were three movements: MPLA, FNLA, and UNITA, and those movements during the fighting against colonialism never joined. So even a lot of African efforts to do it, it was difficult to join. Another thing, you have a lot of opinions, currents of opinions in Africa after independences. Each country follow each way, and Pan-Africanism in general stayed less important because I think, in my view, the ambition of each leadership in terms of explore its own territory without a common thinking. So the first start of Union African was in terms of liberation of overall Africa, less in terms of create a common thinking for joint values and for development in Africa. And Africa remains with a lot of external influences of the countries, their former colonies. So, because this Pan-Africanism lost influence in Africa, I think the best role was a lot of efforts of some countries in terms of supporting our struggle first, and in terms of join movements for unity. But even these efforts are failed because among those movements of liberation, we faced another war during more than 20 years after independence. So, if we as Angolans can do the unity, it was difficult to make the unity in terms of continent.
Yes, I'll come back to that. My senior man, Kwame, when I was a child in elementary school, fortunately I tried to learn reading. I read about the People's Popular Party. I read about the trial of Osei Poku, SS Bafwa, Owusu Jima, and Kofi Owusu. How come that most people who call themselves Nkrumahs in this country today, those bold initiatives to identify with Nkrumah in his last days and during his lifetime are not part of the things which I referred to? And then you just throw a bit of light to help our viewers on the issues which I have referred to.
Well, you know that the names that you mentioned when Nkrumah was overthrown, right? The impression was given that the whole of he had achieved nothing, in the sense that they manipulated and organized demonstrations denouncing him all over.
Yes. Even as an elementary school child, who were beating banana peels that was Nkrumah who were taken along. Yes.
All over. But along, at least for what the others did, Osei Poku, SS Bafwa,
Owusu Jima, who is still alive,
Lieutenant Owusu Jima, and the rest.
and Kofi Owusu, who is also alive here in London.
What took place was that the risk that they took to show that at least there has been resistance. Okay, and this brings us back to trace the resistance that was.
I would want to even add before you go on, Kofi Owusu was in secondary school when he did this. He was in secondary school, which means that people in SSS, those are the equivalents of Kofi Owusu today.
So it brings, we have to go back a little to show that the resistance, like the Portuguese put it, a luta continua.
Yeah.
See, when the merchants were coming toward to the coast of present Ghana, Gold Coast, at least our people have shown resistance to oppression and colonialism. In the southwest of Ghana, western region, there was one of the chiefs, the kings, called Keku Aka, who resisted the domination of the colonial traders
Right, Mandum.
and made sure that, of course, under the society at that time, it was more of, chieftaincy, feudal. This is the good general, warlordism and so. So he made sure that sometimes he went even to the extreme, but it was part of the resistance. He is noted to have made sure that he sees the white people, the Europeans who were coming, and he says he will capture them and say that because of their pale skin color, they are not well, they are sick. And in the hot sunshine, he will make sure that they are shaved and prepared soup, food with plenty of pepper in it, you know. And because of that, the later entries of the colonial power mobilized, and they were better armed. He was, defeated, arrested, and they claim that he died in the Fort Antonio
In prison.
in prison at the castle of at Axim. But I'm convinced that he was sent into slavery, Well, but history being on the side of the toiling masses who were, resisting domination from other areas, made sure that encouraged for the people to continue to struggle. And interestingly, from the same area where the man resisted, Kokwaka resisted the invading external oppressors, emerged power grant of Ghana history, whose father ended to be a French, from France, and then the mother was from that area, and
From Akas area.
yes,
Which is Akas area?
that's is my area.
It's my area. The same area Nkrumah hails from.
And that's what I'm.
And the same area you partly hail from.
You see, so it means that the people carried on within their oral history the resistance, and it was a guiding, principle for them to continue. This man grew up, he became a successful timber merchant. Yes, and he had even that in the 40s. He was more or less the sterling millionaire. Yes, and so George Grant, who they call popular Power Grant, had enough money, and since the mother had told him the culture of resistance had been built in them, when the time came for the anti-domination forces to reorganize under the UGCC, he served as president and founded the UGCC, right? But that's history was jeering our people, the resistance towards a good conclusion, in future. They made sure that, just like the religious who say that the divine father up directed and somebody else came in. Note the trend. The man, Kokwaka, and Power Grant came from the same area.
Okay.
And it happened that whilst he had grown and gave me money, Nkrumah and the rest then also went outside studying. And history dictated that when they were looking for somebody to champion the cause, the youth take the baton, it was Akwaji, a Gan, who had seen and has interacted with